I can say, without a doubt, that I.S.S. is one of the most okayest movies I've ever seen, and that it was certainly showing at the time that I attended a showing of this film. More on this stunning adequacy in just a moment. Before that, let me take a moment to thank my good and generous Patreons who support this dumb, incredibly dumb thing that I do here on YouTube. John Borg, Juliano Toniato, James Gibbons, and Bradley Amiel Julian. Thank you, each and every one of you. I love you. I'll run away with you if you want. Just give me time to tell my wife and kids. Becoming a Patreon is easy and it's godly. All you have to do is visit the link in the video description below. For as little as $5 a month, you will be privy to bonus content that no one else will ever see, and you can do it for less than the cost of an artery-clogging fast food meal. So become a Patreon, because if you enjoy my content for free, you're basically stealing. And now, back to the show. I.S.S. can best be described as a thing that happened. But was that thing what happened a good thing or a bad thing? Let's find out together. I.S.S. is a 2024 thriller starring Ariana Dubois, Masha Moskova, and Chris Messina. In it, the American and Russian crews of the International Space Station spot nuclear explosions going off on the surface of the Earth, which is bad. They then both receive orders to take over the station by any means necessary. The station also only has 24 hours before it falls into the atmosphere, and so the question is posed, will this mixed crew from two warring nations ignore orders and work together to survive, or will they give in to paranoia and distrust and turn on each other? So, needless to say, this movie has a spectacular premise and all the potential to become a taut, claustrophobic thriller where you never knew who to trust, even though you have to trust them to survive in the cold, heartless vacuum of space. I.S.S. could have been a classic, and I guess by my use of the past tense, you can tell that it wasn't. As it currently stands, it's okay. It's a forgettable, passable movie that I will probably never think about again until I scroll by on Netflix a few years from now and think, have I seen that? I don't remember. Let this video stand as a record that I did see I.S.S. and I did have thoughts on that experience. First thought is that, in more capable hands, this movie could have been great, but the hands that received it were not capable ones. Instead of something tense and claustrophobic, we get something strangely relaxed and open. There's actually a bit in this movie where two people hide on the station and the people looking for them can't find them. I know that movies are escapism and that realism shouldn't factor into the story too much, but when your set is literally a couple of hallways and two other rooms, this is like not being able to find two grown people in a small house. It's just not good storytelling. It's just there to pad out runtime. Speaking of not good storytelling, the premise of the entire movie actually strangely works against it in the most frustrating of ways. Picture this. You're on a space station, the entire Earth is burning below you, and no, that's not an exaggeration, it's literally how this movie depicts the Earth after the attacks, and the station you're on has less than 24 hours before it crashes into the atmosphere and burns up like an overdone potato. Now imagine you're given orders to take it over by any means necessary. This is like hijacking the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. It's such a strange exercise in utter futility and meaninglessness, and strangely enough, none of the other astronauts ever stop and ask themselves, why? They make this big deal at the beginning of the film where they watch the Earth spin beneath them, and they say it's a spiritual experience when you realize the Earth doesn't really have borders, and then they spend the rest of the movie like Earth totally has borders. And for what? An orbiting trailer house that's about to burn up? This is basically Trailer Park Boys in space with no jokes. So it's like animated Trailer Park Boys. There is a why, but it's so inconsequential and meaningless that I honestly can barely remember anything about it. It was about a formula that they have to get to Earth and it's going to save lives because it prevents radiation sickness from the fallout. But it never feels like anything but a worthless MacGuffin. I never understood the importance of it. Though, I will admit that I did mentally check out of this movie a couple of times, and if you've seen it, you couldn't blame me. Honestly, I think the movie would have been better off without it, serving instead as a study of duty versus morality and self-preservation. Besides, with the world literally on fire, how would they have even mass-produced this formula? How would they have distributed it? It doesn't matter. Much like the dying station itself, none of it matters. Not a bit of it. The trigger has been pulled. Everything's on fire, and the Titanic is disappearing under the waves. It doesn't matter. In many ways, I.S.S. plays off like an episode of The Twilight Zone, so I was kind of expecting some kind of weird twist at the end, but it just snowballs from an adequate, unsatisfying movie to an adequate, very unsatisfying end that resolves next to nothing. In the end, nothing matters. Not the attacks, not the station, not the lies, not the betrayals. None of it matters in the end. It could have been gloriously nihilistic, but I.S.S. isn't smart enough to even incorporate that into its plot. It just feels like the movie gave up without answering any of the questions it was too ignorant to realize it was posing in the first place. This was a movie that had so much potential. They could have done absolutely amazing things with the setting, the characters, the international conflict, but they just didn't. That's it. They just didn't. And it's frustrating because it seems like the premise delivered a good movie on a silver platter to the writers, and they just didn't. They turned in something that wasn't bad, certainly wasn't great, but good enough by the most loose of standards. What we are left with is a movie that defines what it means to be mid, not insulting or incompetent enough to be bad, and not insightful or aware enough to be good. This movie is a husk of a film that should have been better. It's average. It's happy to be average. I honestly think it set out to be average. And to me, that's even more frustrating than just being bad. At least bad movies make me feel something. I.S.S. is a black hole of emotion. Nothing escapes, and you leave the theater empty, as though your experience was just as futile and meaningless as the experience of the astronauts you just watched. But at least whenever I get home, my house won't be on fire, so I guess I came out as the winner. Thank you for joining me on this cinematic journey, although if you have seen I.S.S., I feel like I should be apologizing to you. But have you seen this film? What are your thoughts? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you every bit as indifferent as I am? I want to hear from you because I have some desperate need to actually make this movie-going experience mean something. Drop a comment with your thoughts, like the video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, press that notification icon so you'll know when I upload new videos, and please consider becoming a Patreon so I can do these things more often because I really do love doing them. And of course, be sure to join us next time to find out what Jason watches.